Hello guys, welcome back to TFD. Now, things are finally starting to move around the NBA because the trade market is heating up. There's been growing buzz about a potential deal between the Atlanta Hawks and the Washington Wizards involving Trae Young, and while that's still developing, one thing feels pretty clear already. The Lakers are almost certainly not in the Trae Young sweepstakes. Could they technically get involved as some distant third or fourth team? Sure, anything is possible. But realistically, that's not where the Lakers' focus is. They're not waiting to land a superstar in a blockbuster deal. Instead, what the Lakers are doing, and what they've done many times before, is waiting for the aftershock. When a big trade like Trae Young potentially happens, it creates ripple effects across the league. Teams reshuffle, rotations change, and suddenly there are role players available who weren't available before. That's where the Lakers want to strike. They're looking to capitalize on the chaos by targeting players they can actually afford, specifically two-way 3-and-D contributors, which is clearly their biggest need right now. Even with the emergence of guys like Jarek Vanderlei giving them some defensive juice, the Lakers still need more reliable two-way depth, and that's why we've been hearing their name connected to several trade targets recently. One of the most interesting names is current Sacramento Kings guard Keon Ellis. This is a player a lot of teams around the league like. In fact, one report suggested that nearly half the NBA has checked in with Sacramento about him. And yes, the Lakers are one of those teams. This isn't just one random rumor either. Jake Fisher has mentioned it, Sean Devaney of Heavy.com has talked about it, even Shams touched on it at one point. But until recently, we hadn't really heard what the Lakers' actual offer might look like. That changed with a new report from Evan Sidery, who suggested that the Lakers would be willing to offer Dalton Knecht in a deal for Keon Ellis. According to that report, the Lakers have checked in with the Kings, but they are not willing to include their only remaining tradable first-round pick, the 2031 pick. From a salary matching standpoint, the deal is simple. Knecht for Ellis works financially without needing extra players or assets. On paper, it's clean, but that doesn't mean it's the best move. From the Kings side, they likely want a first-round pick. From the Lakers side, that 2031 first is extremely valuable, especially given their limited flexibility. The value just doesn't quite line up, and that makes it hard to see this deal getting done in its simplest form. Because of that, the more interesting discussion is whether there's an alternative pathway here. Maybe the Lakers expand the deal. Maybe another player is involved. Maybe even a former Laker comes back in the process. There are multiple trade constructions that could make more sense for both sides, and those possibilities haven't really been explored enough yet. So with all of that in mind, let's talk about those alternative scenarios and how the Lakers might still be able to land Keon Ellis or a similar impact player without burning their last major asset. And just to reset things for a moment, let's do a quick refresher and a broader overview on Keon Ellis, because if you're not familiar with him, or if you haven't followed the trade chatter around him this season, the context really matters here. Right now, Ellis is averaging roughly 6 points per game. He's shooting about 35.9% from 3 at the time of this video, playing only around 17 minutes per night. Statistically, you're looking at about 1.5 rebounds per game, under 1 assist, and roughly 1.2 steals per game. Now, that steal number becomes much more interesting when you scale it up, because per 36 minutes, he's well over 2 steals per game. That's legit defensive activity, not empty production. And that defensive impact isn't new. Over the course of his career, Keon Ellis is a 41.7% three-point shooter. That's very strong efficiency, especially for a player whose role hasn't been consistent. On top of that, he's always been a defensive playmaker, averaging close to 2 steals per 36 minutes for his career. He's active, disruptive, and understands how to play within a team defensive system. Age-wise, he's still young. He's 25 years old and will turn 26 in less than a month. That matters. This isn't a finished product. When you combine his shooting, his defensive instincts, and his age, what you're really looking at is a solid 3-and-D guard with room to grow. There's still untapped potential here if a team actually commits to him and gives him a defined role. But here's where things get complicated, and this is really the biggest issue in any Keon Ellis trade discussion. He's on an expiring contract. Ellis is making just $2.3 million this season, and that's the final year of his deal. After this season ends, he becomes an unrestricted free agent. That means any team that trades for him is not just acquiring the player, they're also acquiring risk. Because if he plays well, you're going to have to pay him to keep him, and if he doesn't, you may have just traded assets for a rental. For a player like Keon Ellis, whose market value isn't crystal clear, that creates uncertainty, not just in the current trade market, but in free agency as well. And that uncertainty absolutely impacts his trade value. Now, there have been reports that Sacramento wants a first-round pick for him, but when you really sit down and look at the situation, I just don't see that happening. Between the expiring contract, the risk of losing him in free agency, and the fact that teams would have to commit money to retain him, asking for a first-rounder feels ambitious. Most teams are not going to give up a first-rounder while also taking on that level of risk. And that's before you even factor in how Sacramento has used him this season. Yes, Keon Ellis is a good player, but he hasn't played consistently. He's been in and out of the rotation all year, and honestly, the Kings have not done a great job at raising his trade value. One night, he'll play 35 minutes. The next night, he'll play 5 minutes. And no, that's not an exaggeration. Those were literally his last 2 games. 5 minutes against Milwaukee, followed by 35 minutes against the Phoenix Suns on January 2nd. That kind of inconsistency makes it extremely difficult for teams to evaluate him and doesn't help Sacramento's leverage at all. Now, shifting back to the Lakers side of this, there's been discussion around a Dalton Connect plus a second-round pick type of trade package, and I understand why Sacramento might feel that's not enough. Keon Ellis is the more proven player right now, and frankly, he's the cleaner fit for what the Lakers actually need. The Lakers are not looking for one-dimensional players. They don't need offense-only scorers who can't defend, and they don't need defense-only guys who can't stay on the floor offensively. What they need are real two-way guards or wings, players who can defend at a high level, knock down open threes, and survive in playoff-level basketball. Keon Ellis checks those boxes. Would I trade Dalton Connect plus some draft compensation for him? Yes, I think that's reasonable. Would I trade a first-rounder? No, and definitely not the Lakers' final tradable first-round pick. That would be a deal-breaker for me. Given the Lakers' limited flexibility and asset pool, that 2031 first-round pick is far too valuable to burn on an expiring role player, even as one as useful as Ellis. That's not a road I'm going down. So the big question becomes, what's the middle ground? If Sacramento wants a first-round pick and the Lakers refuse to offer one, and if the Lakers only have a second-round pick to include, which may not be enough, what's the compromise? One option could be a first-round swap, not an actual first-round pick, but a swap in 2028 or 2030. That's something the Lakers might be willing to consider. Would Dalton Connect plus a first-round swap be enough for Keon Ellis? Maybe, maybe not. It depends on how Sacramento values him and how much leverage they think they have. Who knows? It could work or it could fall short. But in my opinion, the most realistic pathway here is expanding the deal. That means more players involved, possibly even more teams involved. And if we keep it simple, just a 2-team trade between the Lakers and the Kings, I think it likely involves a former Laker, someone Sacramento has been trying to move but hasn't been able to, largely because of the contract they gave him. And once you start looking at it from that angle, the conversation changes entirely.
Now, the former Laker I'm talking about here is Malik Monk. Monk signed a 4-year, $78 million contract with the Sacramento Kings back in 2024. He's currently in the second year of that deal with 2 additional years remaining. He's making about $18.8 million this season, $20.1 million next season, and then $21.5 million in the 2027-28 season, which includes a player option. Is it a great contract? No, but I also wouldn't call it a terrible one. For a guy averaging around 11.5 points per game in just 21 minutes per night, that production actually scales pretty well. Per 36 minutes, he's close to 20 points per game. He's also shooting an efficient 40.8% from 3, taking over 4 threes per game in those limited minutes. On top of that, he's shown real secondary playmaking ability. Last season, he averaged 5.5 assists per game with only about 2.4 turnovers. He's athletic, can create his own shot, can play on or off the ball, and he's a former top 5 finisher at his position. Let's not forget, he also received 6th Man of the Year votes back in 2023. So overall, Malik Monk is still a solid NBA player. He's only 27 years old. The main issue is that he's just a bit overpaid relative to his current role. And that matters because Sacramento has made it fairly clear that they've been trying to move him, but they haven't been able to find the right deal. And that's where this becomes interesting for the Lakers. Could Monk be a different pathway to getting Keon Ellis at a more reasonable and mutually agreeable price? I think it's possible, because at that point, the Lakers wouldn't just be offering one type of trade package, they'd have options. One potential framework could be centered around Gabe Vincent and Christian Wood. No, those guys don't carry much positive trade value, but they do have expiring contracts. And if Sacramento is truly looking to move Malik Monk's long-term money off their books, that could matter. If you're the Kings and you're offloading Monk, you probably don't want to take back long-term salary. 2 expiring contracts would clean the books faster. So a package of Gabe Vincent, Wood, and maybe light draft compensation for Malik Monk and Keon Ellis is at least worth exploring. I'd absolutely gauge their interest in something like that before offering Dalton Knecht straight up and getting hit with first-round pick demands. I'd much rather go this route first. Now, if Sacramento insists on Dalton Knecht and wants a higher value player involved, then maybe the conversation shifts. At that point, you could look at a package like Dalton Knecht and Rui Hachimura for Malik Monk and Keon Ellis, but only if Sacramento is the one attaching draft compensation. Not a first-round pick. That's not realistic. But maybe a second-round pick. That would give the Lakers an extra second they could later use in another deal, possibly involving Vincent and Wood elsewhere. I don't love the idea of giving up Hachimura. I'd actually prefer to keep him and have him anchor the bench unit. But if the coaching staff is committed to starting him, and if the front office isn't confident about retaining him long-term or paying him this summer, then this route becomes more defensible. In that scenario, you'd be getting Keon Ellis, who fits the Lakers' two-way 3-and-D needs perfectly, and Malik Monk, who could realistically replace Hachimura's scoring and shooting. Monk shoots roughly the same percentage from 3 on similar volume, is more comfortable coming off the bench, and thrives in that role, something Hachimura has never really embraced. There's also the familiarity factor. Monk has already played with LeBron James and Austin Reeves back in 2022. He was one of Austin's closest friends on the team. LeBron liked him, and he handled the pressure of playing in Los Angeles just fine. That season genuinely helped revive his career. Even with the contract, I wouldn't be completely opposed to it. I actually think the Lakers could get more out of Monk than Sacramento currently is, especially considering how much his role has been reduced compared to last season, when he averaged over 17 points and 5.5 assists per game. The real question, though, is financial flexibility. Reports suggest the Lakers are hesitant to take on contracts that extend beyond the season because they want to preserve cap flexibility this summer. And that's what this ultimately comes down to. Even if the price is good, even if the deal helps both the present and future on the court, are they willing to sacrifice that flexibility? Maybe, maybe not. Personally, I think it's worth stronger consideration than they'll probably give it, but it all depends on how they view their long-term plan. Those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you think. How do you feel about a Keon Ellis trade? Do you think a simple Dalton Knecht deal could work, or does it have to be expanded? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.